Are as bad as you say. Why no fire sale? Welcome, everybody. I'm Neil Cavuto. And despite the mounting debt that front-running Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney bemoans daily, a stunning reaction from buyers of that debt today. A record low yield of 1.90% for some 10-year notes that were sold today. That's all it took to unload $21 billion worth of them in a Treasury Department auction. Brief explainer here. The lower the yield, the higher the price. The higher the price, the higher the demand. And today, the demand for anything from United States Treasury was high, and reaction from foreigners even higher, which is weird because we ain't exactly firing on all cylinders. It is a staggering development that today staggered Washington and Wall Street as well. Each has long feared the piling red ink would lead to higher interest rates just to keep buyers satisfied. Not today. And now we're maybe not for a while. Hard to say. This much is not. Say what you will of our fiscal ills. Traders say much of the rest of the world is a lot more ill, which could be very good news for the president and potentially very bad news for the guy who wants to be president. Now, the debt is still bad, but the demand on the part of customers happy to take it on, still good. Actually, very good. So, does Mitt Romney have to change his tune in South Carolina? After all, if buyers of our debt aren't worried, why should voters be? To roll call Shira Toeplitz, who says voters should be worried because the economy and debt are huge worries. But is it registering, Shira? What do you think?
Oh, I think what really registers right now in South Carolina is unemployment. We're talking about a state that, compared to Iowa and New Hampshire, has a higher unemployment rate, in some cases almost twice the unemployment rate of the states in the early primary calendar. I think voters there are really concerned about, are they going to have a job? They're not looking about the U.S. debt and how much it's selling for right now. What matters to them is, are they going to have a paycheck next week or in 6 weeks or in 6 months?
Now, that might in fact be the case, but it was not a driving issue in states in remarkably better shape by comparison. In Iowa and New Hampshire, where the unemployment rate is much lower than the national average, and in each where the economic growth is much stronger than the national average, the economy was still, a concern, a huge concern, as it is in South Carolina, but it didn't propel throngs of voters to come out. In other words, roughly the same participation on the part of Republicans this go-round as last go-round in Iowa and New Hampshire. I don't know what the expectations are in South Carolina. But normally, if people are collectively angry, they come out in droves. That isn't happening yet. It might. What do you read into that?
Well, I have looked over the turnout numbers that you've mentioned here, and you're right, turnout is pretty much where it was 4 years ago. But let's remember that 4 years ago was a pretty big turnout in terms of numbers and energy. So, yes, 4 years ago was kind of a high watermark, and the fact that we're reaching that again, I think, says something. Let's also remember that these primary contests, this is not the general election, these are, in many cases, a pretty small group. And if voters don't have a strong opinion of someone, for example, in the South Carolina primary, they're probably not going to be motivated to get out of the car in the really freezing cold in New Hampshire and go vote for this person. So you're dealing with a lot of high undecided voters, and I think that's another reason turnout might not be astronomical. But again, it's pretty high if it's reaching 2008 levels.
All right, sure. Thank you very, very much. Well, Gary B. Smith